Next is from Nick. He says it's a first question from a longtime listener.
Hi, Nick.
So you guys have shared thoughts on codependent and open relationships as well as addictions. My impression is that you guys define a codependent relationship as any relationship where the partners are addicted to each other. I'm not sure why this is bad if they are compatible. Can you guys clearly define the difference between a healthy, loving relationship and a codependent one? And then there's a part 2 after this.
Sure.
Great question, first of all.
Me or you?
No, go ahead.
So this is one of the difficult things when I make videos for the channel is that when I step back and I go philosophizing, what would pure love look like? I go, it would look like pure acceptance and a non-neediness and a desire for what is best for the individual, even if it meant a separation, right? So the type of love that perhaps moms need to have on the day that they drop their kid off on the college on the other side of the nation, but not the one that goes, no, you got to stay here in our small town.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the type of love that I would say is healthy. And it comes from an understanding that you will not be able to be together forever necessarily. And so the codependent relationship can be very similar to that, with one exception, that there's a top priority, and it's that you can't leave me. You need to stay around, be together because you are my happiness. And so that to me is the fundamental difference. I think, quite frankly, all of the secondary stuff in that codependent relationship looks a lot like the pure love relationship, except that top priority of I need you in the healthy relationship is subbed out for I accept and want what is best for you. That's the biggest difference, even if it means we never speak again. You're not my happiness. You're part of it. Anything else so that's how I would define it.
No, yeah, and I think there's degrees, first of all. I don't think every codependent relationship is unhappy. I think probably a lot of happy relationships are codependent. So I should get that out there. I think that there's degrees of this. And so, for instance, if you are in a relationship where you love spending time with each other, the other person would be a 10 out of 10 happy if they went for 1 week with their friends on a fishing trip or whatever it might be, and you are incapable of letting them go do that because you have an emotional anxiety or depression or whatever when they leave. Now you are not allowing this person to do what makes them happy because of your negative emotions from their lack, that absence. That's the addiction part. Their absence for a week causes such causes such intense negative emotions in you that you can't allow them to go do something that they will enjoy. That's the downside of the codependence. That's the downside of the addiction.
That's a great point. That's almost, and I should have included this because that is really one of the defining features of an addiction, which is it's strongest in its lack. So like I would say that many of my friendships are not codependent because while I love having my friends here, when they leave, I do not long for or miss them terribly. Love to talk to them.
Let's say.
Exactly.
I'd love to have them here.
Yeah.
I would love for this guy to come back. My life's better when this person's around. But I'm not in pain from their absence.
Yes.
It's just that I would prefer it because of its upside.
And many of my romantic relationships have been, I mean, not you're gone for a day, but it's painful. If I don't see you for a month, that hurts. That gives me anxiety prior to and
it's romanticized is the other thing.
And that's how we define our love in many cases.
Exactly.
I miss you so much, I can't live without you, is what we say. And we go, true love right there. And I think, as Ben points to, that creates so many issues where not only can't you separate from the person, but you stop being the guy who wants to go on the fishing trip because he reciprocates that feeling, goes, I don't really want to go. No, it's okay, because he can sense that she's going to be so nervous and he loves her and he doesn't want her to feel that. So now he isn't being him.
Yeah, when you see a relationship be controlling, when you see the other person actively trying to prevent their partner from doing something that their partner would like, that is a function of the fact that it's addictive and codependent. And I think in a relationship that didn't have that as much, because I actually do genuinely think that most sexual or romantic relationships will have a
Degree.
some degree of codependence and addiction. I haven't seen one that is perfectly without it, and I think that's fine because you can still have a good relationship with it. But to the extent that you have more of that, is you'll see a more controlling relationship.
And it can be not even overt. I think this is one of the things is you don't even recognize that you're the one who said, I don't want to go fishing, because you intuited so reflexively that was going to upset them, to the degree that one of the signs of codependency is you lose track of your own desires.
Yep. You predict fights. Yep. You get guilty about something you haven't done yet because you know it'll upset the person. But what you're doing isn't wrong. Like, obviously, if you cheat, you know it's going to upset the person. You shouldn't do that. That's bad. But taking a night with your friends, taking a trip for a week with your family, these things that shouldn't upset someone, but you sense that they will. And so because of that, you subvert your own desires.
They don't even occur consciously to you.
Yes.
All of a sudden, it's, that's such a long trip. I don't even want to go. What I would say would be more healthy in that scenario would be, I'm completely and totally aware of my desire. I'm perhaps completely aware that this person doesn't want to go. A healthier thing is, I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to say it, but I'm not going to cut my own desire off at its ankles. I'm going to be an independently functioning person who negotiates and compromises with another person. Or if you're me, compromises not as much. Yeah. I mostly just do what I want.
No, or at least have it be an overt agreement. There's a really good book I like called No More Mr. Nice Guy, or No More Mr. Nice Guys. I don't remember the exact title, but it talks about how in relationships there are these covert contracts where you would skip a trip because you think a person's going to be upset, and then you would expect some sort of reciprocation from them. Like, for that week, they're extra nice to you.
Or they just love you.
Because you didn't go to that
Now
trip.
you love me. Forever. You love me forever because I didn't do the thing that was going to
that I
make you
wanted
sad.
to do or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's happening so much subconsciously. And so I think that book is really good because for me, it highlighted the importance of just having the overt conversation, whatever it is, of, I'd like to do this thing. Well, it would upset me if you did. Okay, then I won't. For you, I will sacrifice. And at least have that conversation above the water, you know, instead of having it be this thing that doesn't get voiced, that gets unspoken.
Yeah.
So no relationship's going to be perfect. No relationship's going to be perfectly unaddicted. This is not a critique of every codependent relationship, but I think that's what we mean when we say that the less codependence you have, the better. The more you can be happy for the other person, even if they're doing something that you're not there for, the more you can accept that space doesn't hurt you, the better.
For me and you and
yeah that's just what we're trying to
that's
communicate.
what we're trying to do. Yeah. So what's the second part?
And also it has nothing to do with open. There was like an open thrown in there, but open, monogamous, whatever. This is just how I feel about dating.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, the gist of the answer was in your guys' response already,
cool.
kind of, but the second part is, I am unclear on what the point of a relationship would be if not to get addicted to the person who you are compatible with.
That's interesting.
If this addiction is not the end goal, why not be completely open instead of agreeing on varying degrees of exclusivity?
It's a great point. I mean, what you're essentially saying, and I think Ben said there's differing degrees of codependence of what my lack of you means. But yeah, if go to the extreme, imagine the monk in the whatever, right? The Buddha has relationships but controls no one, expects nothing from or of anyone, but is so pleasantly surprised when you show up at his door and he pours you the tea, and he doesn't even have a sexual relationship in most cases because, quite frankly, what a lot of monks find is it gets in the way of this sort of ability
it's
to
hard
just
not
be
to get
even
a little
keeled.
bit addicted.
Yeah, you get addicted. That's why I think sex has been shunned by so many of these monks, because it gets in the way of this. You're right. People want the addiction.
Yeah. No, and to your point, even forgetting, well, let's not say forgetting the addiction, but just looking at it in terms of codependence or fear of loss or whatever it might be. My friend who got into a serious relationship when we were in our early 20s and is now married to the person was debating, should I date her exclusively? Should I not? He was seeing a couple people. And he said, I'm going to make the grand compromise. That's what he called it. And I said, what is the grand compromise? He goes, I'm going to stop sleeping with other people so that she will stop sleeping with other people, which is exactly kind of what we're talking about, which is I don't want her to do this, so I'll stop as well, which is like a different version of I'm going to skip all my fishing trips with my friends so that she will skip all her fishing trips with her friends and we'll never be apart. These are just, these are similar agreements. At least monogamy is an overt agreement, which again, I personally think is better. But yeah, I think in a world with no codependence and no addiction, you would see less jealousy and you would see less controllingness and you would probably see more non-monogamous relationships. I don't disagree with you. It's hard because then you get into this idea of how much is genetically pre-programmed, how much of jealousy is part of human nature. So I'm not here to be a proponent for or against monogamy or openness, but yeah, I think you are right in that you are sensing that is a degree of codependence, codependence, addiction, control, whatever you might be.
I need you to do X or not do Y in order to be happy, is what that is, right? I mean, that's what monogamy is. If you do these things, I will be crushed.
Whereas I would say a relationship you can look to as an example of what is possible of love, right, is no matter who Charlie sleeps with, it does not affect our friendship. Whether he's not sleeping with anyone or he's monogamous or he has sex with a different person every day.
There's some people that I can't. Exes of yours, right? Like it's
Go
not.
Go for it, bud. Good. Enjoy yourself.
You could imagine though, and I think that there's a degree of you need fewer things from me.
Sure.
But some, and that's kind of what I think Ben and I are driving at, is how big is the sphere of things that you need someone to do or not do in order for you to feel good, safe, and loved. Mm-hmm. And what I'm trying to do is shrink that sphere to keep as much of my love as I can in my own control. Like, yeah, Ben goes and does whatever Ben does. It's unlikely to have a negative impact on my day. But when a girlfriend that I had would do something that I didn't like, it could have such a negative impact so
and I
easily.
Think another just to highlight, because I think part of the question was, what is your definition of this addiction or this codependence? I call Charlie because I want to go out to dinner with him. He says no. I call a different friend. I go out to dinner with that friend. I can sit at dinner and not think about Charlie in the absence of Charlie. I can just be hanging out with Dan and Brandon, right? In a more codependent, addictive context, you might try to see someone. Let's say you're not married. Let's say you're dating. You don't live together and you hit them up for plans. They say no. And it makes you sad. And you either don't make other plans or you do and you go out to dinner with your friends, but your mind is on that other person. You can't be present with your current company, who honestly, maybe the conversation's different, but could be equally enjoyable if you were able to be present. That's just another example of the difference between a relationship that's more codependent, more addicted.
Yeah.
Whereas I think you'll see in a lot of non-sexual relationships, you're capable of having fun whether the person's there or not, even though it would always be additive to have Charlie there.
And this is, again, there's a lot of ways to define addiction, but one of them that you're touching on is addiction is defined by you're being inspired by lack, right? Like you go to drink because you're sober, and that's a problem. Not because drinking is wonderful.
Yeah, because sober is anxiety.
Because sober is terrible. And when you're in a relationship, like you're going out because sitting home alone drives you crazy because you're thinking about that person and where they may or may not be. Versus joy-inspired things are, I'm going to go out with Dan and Brandon because Dan and Brandon are great. Oh yeah, Charlie's not here, but I'm not thinking about all the people that aren't here. I'm doing this in a more joy-inspired way. So that's what I personally am trying to drive to. Fewer decisions made to reduce the perceived lack in my life, and more decisions made to increase joy.
Yeah, if you can do it to a lesser degree, if you can have less addiction or codependence, what it allows you to do is enjoy the person's company when they're there and be happy and enjoy your life when they can't be there.
Mm-hmm.